Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he floated through the dark corridors of the abandoned alien ship. His mining suit's headlamp cut through the darkness, revealing twisted metal and strange symbols carved into the walls. The ship had been drifting in the asteroid belt for months, and his company finally got permission to salvage whatever they could find. He was supposed to be looking for valuable metals or technology, but something felt wrong about this place. The ship was too quiet, too empty. Most derelict vessels showed signs of battle damage or system failures, but this one looked like everyone had just vanished. Jake pushed deeper into the ship, following his scanner's weak signals toward what seemed to be the cargo bay. The corridor opened into a massive room filled with strange containers and holding cells. Jake's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't a cargo ship at all. It was a prison transport. The cells were empty now, their doors hanging open, but the smell of fear and desperation still lingered in the recycled air. Jake moved slowly between the cells, his stomach turning as he imagined what had happened here. Then he heard it, a soft humming sound coming from the far end of the bay. Jake turned his headlamp toward the noise and froze. In the last cell, behind a shimmering energy barrier, sat a young woman, but she wasn't human. Her skin had a pale blue tint that seemed to glow softly in the darkness, and her hair was silver like starlight. She looked up at Jake with eyes the color of deep violets, and he could see intelligence and hope flickering there. Jake approached the cell slowly, not wanting to frighten her. The woman pressed her hands against the energy barrier and spoke in a language he didn't understand. Her voice was musical like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. She pointed to herself and said something that sounded like Zara. Then she pointed to him and tilted her head in question. "Jake," he said, tapping his chest. "My name is Jake." Zara smiled, the first genuine smile Jake had seen in months of working alone in the asteroid belt. She reached for something attached to her belt and activated a small device. Suddenly, her words came through his suit's communication system in clear English. "You are human," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "I have studied your species in my research. You are far from your homeworld." Jake nodded, still trying to process what he was seeing. "You're a prisoner here. How long have you been trapped?" Zara's expression grew sad. "Many of your weeks, I think. The Kovani slavers captured me while I was conducting peaceful research in the Outer Rim. They were taking me to the slave markets when their ship was attacked. The crew escaped in the lifeboats, but they left me here to die." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. He had heard stories about alien slavers, but seeing the reality of it made his blood boil. No one deserved to be caged like an animal. He examined the energy barrier, looking for some way to disable it. "I am Etherian," Zara continued. "My people are scholars and inventors from the Andromeda Galaxy. We seek knowledge and understanding, not conquest or profit. I was studying the unique properties of the metals in your asteroid belt when they captured me." Jake found what looked like a control panel beside the cell. The symbols were alien, but the basic design seemed familiar. He had worked with energy systems his whole life, and this looked similar to the containment fields they used in the mines. "Can you tell me about your people? What were you researching?" Zara's eyes lit up. "We believe that every species has something unique to offer the universe. Humans, for instance, have something very special that most other species lack. You have the ability to make individual moral choices, even when those choices put you at risk. Most civilized species operate through collective consciousness or strict hierarchical programming. But humans can choose to do good simply because it is right." Jake worked on the control panel as she spoke, trying different combinations of touches and gestures. "That doesn't sound so special. Anyone can choose to help others." "You would be surprised," Zara said softly. "In my travels, I have met many species who would walk past this cell without a second thought. They would consider my fate to be none of their concern. But you, a human I have never met, are risking your safety to help me. That is extraordinary." Jake finally found the right sequence, and the energy barrier flickered and died. Zara stepped out of the cell, moving with a grace that seemed almost like dancing. She was taller than Jake had expected, and there was a wisdom in her eyes that made her seem much older than her apparent age. "Thank you," she said, placing her hand on his arm. "I will never forget this kindness." Jake led her through the ship toward his mining shuttle. "We need to get you out of here. Do you have somewhere safe to go?" Zara nodded. "There is a neutral trading station 3 days from here. I can contact my people from there. But first, I want to give you something." She reached into a pouch on her belt and pulled out a small crystalline device that pulsed with soft light. "This contains my research data and personal logs. It may not seem valuable to you now, but I believe it will be important someday." Jake took the crystal, feeling its strange warmth through his gloves. "I can't take your research. You said it was important." "It is important," Zara said with a smile, "but not as important as the kindness you have shown me. Besides, I have memorized everything. This is my gift to you, and perhaps to your species." They reached Jake's shuttle, and he helped Zara into the co-pilot's seat. As they flew away from the prison ship, she stared out at the stars with tears in her violet eyes. "I studied your species for months," she said quietly, "but I never truly understood humans until today. You saved me not because you expected a reward, but because it was the right thing to do. That is a rare gift in this universe." Jake set course for the trading station, wondering what would happen to this strange, intelligent woman. "Will you be okay? Will your people find you?" Zara smiled and touched the crystal device in his hand. "Yes, and someday I will find you. Again, I promise you that. The universe has a way of bringing together those who are meant to meet." As they flew through the asteroid belt toward the distant trading station, Jake felt like his life had changed in some fundamental way. He had no idea that his simple act of compassion would ripple across the galaxy, or that the woman beside him would become one of the most powerful beings in the universe. All he knew was that he had done the right thing, and that was enough. 5 years had passed since Jake Morrison helped the alien woman escape from that prison ship. He often thought about Zara during his quiet moments between mining operations. Sometimes he wondered if she had made it safely back to her people, or if she even remembered the human who had freed her from that dark cell. Jake's life had changed quite a bit since then. He was no longer just a simple mining engineer floating through the asteroid belt. His supervisors had promoted him to operations manager, and now he oversaw mining activities across 3 different asteroid fields. The work was demanding, but Jake had earned a reputation for being fair to his workers and finding creative solutions to dangerous situations. His small crew respected him, because he never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. When the mining tunnels became unstable, Jake was the first one to go in and check the support beams. When the oxygen recyclers started failing, he worked alongside the technicians to fix them. His safety protocols had prevented dozens of accidents, and his asteroid fields had the lowest injury rates in the entire mining company. The crystalline device Zara had given him still sat on his desk in his personal quarters. He had tried many times to activate it, but the crystal remained dark and silent. Sometimes he held it up to the light, watching the way it seemed to capture and bend the rays in impossible ways. It reminded him of that strange, wonderful woman who had changed his perspective on the universe. Jake had no way of knowing that far across the galaxy, Zara was building something extraordinary. After reaching the neutral trading station, she had contacted her people and returned safely to Etherian space. But the experience of being imprisoned and then rescued by a human had transformed her in ways she never expected. Zara had always been brilliant, even by Etherian standards. Her people were natural inventors and philosophers, but she possessed a rare combination of theoretical knowledge and practical application. Before her capture, she had been working on advanced energy manipulation theories that most of her colleagues considered impossible to implement, but Jake's kindness had given her a new perspective on what was possible. She began to see her research not just as intellectual exercises, but as tools that could help others. The human who had risked everything to save a stranger had shown her that individual actions could have profound consequences. This insight became the foundation of everything she would build. Working with a small team of Etherian scientists, Zara developed revolutionary technologies that bridged the gap between pure science and practical application. Her first breakthrough came in energy storage systems that could hold 1,000 times more power than anything previously created. The technology was so advanced that it seemed almost magical to other species. Within 2 years, Zara had established her own research company. Within 3 years, she had contracts with governments and corporations across multiple galaxies. Her energy storage systems revolutionized space travel, making it possible for ships to journey between star systems without stopping to refuel. Her matter transformation devices could turn raw asteroids into refined metals in minutes rather than months. Other species began to take notice of the young Etherian who was changing the fundamental rules of technology. Trade delegations visited her laboratories, offering enormous sums for licensing rights to her inventions. Military leaders wanted her defensive technologies. Terraforming companies needed her atmospheric processors, but Zara was careful about who she worked with. She remembered the slavers who had captured her, and she refused to sell her technologies to anyone who might use them to harm others. Instead, she focused on peaceful applications that would benefit entire civilizations. Her atmospheric processors could make dead worlds habitable. Her medical scanners could detect diseases before they became fatal. Her communication systems allowed instant contact across vast distances. Within 4 years, Zara had become one of the wealthiest individuals in known space. Her company, Etherian Dynamics, employed thousands of beings from dozens of different species. She owned research facilities on 17 different worlds and had trade agreements with over 100 governments, but success and wealth were not what drove Zara. Every night, she thought about the human who had saved her life. She began studying Earth's culture, economics, and technology with the same intensity she had once applied to energy physics. She learned about human history, art, literature, and philosophy. She watched human entertainment broadcasts and read human scientific journals. What she discovered fascinated her. Humans were far more complex and capable than most other species realized. They had developed remarkable technologies despite having no contact with galactic civilization. Their art and music showed emotional depth that rivaled the greatest Etherian philosophers. Their literature explored moral questions that even advanced species struggled to answer. Most importantly, humans possessed that rare quality Zara had experienced firsthand, the ability to make individual moral choices based on compassion rather than programming or social pressure. Jake had helped her not because his government ordered it, not because his species required it, but simply because he believed it was right. Zara began to form a plan. She would use her wealth and influence to help humanity take its rightful place among the galactic community. Not as a junior partner or primitive species, but as equals who could contribute something unique and valuable to the universe. She would repay Jake's kindness by lifting up his entire species, but first she needed to find him. Her intelligence network, built through years of business relationships, began searching for information about human mining operations in the asteroid belt. She learned about Jake's promotion and his reputation as a fair and innovative manager. She discovered that he had never married, that he lived simply despite his success, and that he was respected by everyone who worked with him. The more she learned about Jake, the more convinced she became that her plan was correct. He represented the best of humanity, practical wisdom, moral courage, and genuine compassion. If she could convince him to help her, together they could bridge the gap between human and galactic civilization. Zara began preparing for her return to human space. She assembled a small fleet of the most advanced ships in her company, loaded with technologies that could transform human society. She practiced speaking English until she sounded completely natural. She studied human customs and business practices until she understood them as well as her own. 5 years after Jake had freed her from that prison cell, Zara was ready to keep her promise. She was no longer the desperate prisoner he had rescued. She was now one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, with the resources to change the course of human history. and she was coming back to find the man who had started it all with a simple act of kindness. Jake Morrison was reviewing the daily mining reports when his communication console started beeping with an urgent priority message. He looked up from his desk, surprised by the formal tone of the incoming transmission. Ships rarely contacted his mining station directly unless there was an emergency or a scheduled supply delivery. The message was from something called the Galactic Development Consortium, requesting permission to dock at his facility. Jake had never heard of this organization, but their credentials appeared legitimate through the Earth Trade Authority database. They claimed to be interested in human mining techniques and wanted to discuss potential business opportunities. Jake granted docking permission and walked to the main airlock to meet their representatives. Through the station's viewing ports, he could see their ship approaching, and his jaw dropped at the sight. The vessel was enormous, easily 3 times the size of any ship that had ever docked at his station. Its hull gleamed with a metallic surface that seemed to shift colors in the light, and its design was unlike anything in the human fleet. The ship moved with impossible grace for something so large, settling into the docking bay without even the slightest bump or vibration. Jake had seen plenty of alien vessels over the years, but this one was clearly built by a civilization far more advanced than anything he had encountered before. As the airlock cycled through its connection sequence, Jake straightened his uniform and tried to look professional. Mining station managers didn't usually meet with representatives from major galactic corporations, and he wanted to make a good impression. The airlock hissed open, and Jake stepped forward to welcome his visitors. The first figure to emerge from the ship made Jake's heart stop. She was tall and elegant, dressed in flowing robes that seemed to shimmer and change color as she moved. Her skin had that familiar pale blue tint, and her silver hair caught the station's artificial lighting like captured starlight. But it was her violet eyes that confirmed what Jake could hardly believe. "Hello, Jake," Zara said with a warm smile that lit up her entire face. "I told you we would meet again." Jake stood there speechless, trying to process what he was seeing. The desperate prisoner he had rescued 5 years ago was now clearly a person of enormous wealth and influence. Behind her stood a small group of aliens from different species, all wearing expensive clothing and carrying themselves with the confidence of successful business people. "Zara," Jake finally managed to say, "I can't believe it's really you. You look so different." "Different but the same," she said, stepping closer. "I am still the woman you saved from that prison cell, but many things have changed since then." Jake noticed that she no longer needed her translation device. Her English was perfect, with just a slight accent that made her voice even more musical than he remembered. She moved with a confidence and grace that spoke of someone who was used to being in command. "I heard you were interested in human mining techniques," Jake said, still trying to wrap his mind around the situation. "But I'm guessing that's not really why you're here." Zara laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You are correct. I'm here because I made you a promise, and I always keep my promises. I told you that I would never forget your kindness, and I have not. Everything I have accomplished has been driven by the memory of what you did for me." She gestured to her companions. "May we speak privately? I have much to tell you, and some of it involves information that would be valuable to your competitors." Jake led them to his office, the largest room on the station but still cramped with so many visitors. Zara's entourage remained standing while she took the chair across from Jake's desk. He noticed that despite her obvious wealth and status, she still carried herself with the same dignity and warmth he remembered. "I need to explain what has happened in the 5 years since we last met," Zara began. "The research I was conducting when the slavers captured me became the foundation for technologies that have revolutionized multiple industries across the galaxy. I used those innovations to build a company called Etherian Dynamics." Jake had heard whispers about Etherian Dynamics in the trade networks. It was supposed to be one of the most powerful corporations in known space, with technologies that seemed almost magical to human engineers. "You're telling me that you own Etherian Dynamics?" "I am the founder and chief executive officer," Zara confirmed. "My personal wealth is now greater than the economic output of most star systems. I have business relationships with governments and corporations across 3 galaxies. But none of that matters compared to why I am here. She leaned forward, her violet eyes intense with purpose. I am here because your single act of compassion changed everything for me. You showed me that individual choices matter, that one person can make a difference in the universe. That lesson became the driving force behind everything I built. Jake felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she was telling him. I just did what anyone would have done. I couldn't leave you trapped in that cell. That is where you are wrong, Zara said firmly. Most beings in this galaxy would have walked away. They would have considered your fate to be none of their concern. But you, a human I had never met, risked your career and your safety to help me. That is extraordinary. She stood up and walked to the viewing port, looking out at the asteroid field where Jake's miners were working. I have spent 5 years studying your species. Humans have something that most civilizations lack, the ability to make moral choices, based on compassion rather than programming or social pressure. You represent the best of humanity, Jake Morrison. Jake joined her at the viewing port, still struggling to process everything she had told him. What do you want from me? Why are you really here? Zara turned to face him, and Jake could see the same hope in her eyes that he had seen in that prison cell 5 years ago. I want to offer you and your species a partnership, not the kind where humans are treated as primitive junior partners, but a true collaboration between equals. I want to share my technologies with humanity, but I need someone I trust to help me do it properly. She reached into her robes and pulled out a small datapad. Handing it to Jake, the screen showed financial projections and technological specifications that made his head spin. This is my proposal. I want to invest in human advancement, starting with your mining operations and expanding to space exploration, medicine, and defensive technologies. Together, we can help humanity take its rightful place among the galactic community. Jake stared at the datapad, trying to comprehend the scope of what she was offering. The numbers were staggering, the technologies revolutionary. This is incredible, but why me? I'm just a mining station manager. You are the human who taught me that individual actions can change the universe, Zara said simply. If I'm going to bet my fortune on humanity's potential, I want to do it with someone who understands that real power comes from doing what is right, not from seeking personal gain. Jake looked from the datapad to Zara's hopeful face, realizing that his life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. Jake Morrison sat in his office staring at the datapad Zara had given him, trying to process the enormous scope of her proposal. The numbers were beyond anything he had ever imagined. She was offering to invest billions of galactic credits in human advancement, starting with his small mining operation and expanding to transform human civilization itself. This is overwhelming, Jake said finally, setting down the datapad. You're talking about changing the entire future of humanity. That's a responsibility I'm not sure I'm ready for. Zara moved away from the viewing port and sat back down across from him. I understand your concerns. When I first escaped from that prison ship, I was just a researcher with some interesting theories. The idea that I would one day become one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy seemed impossible. But sometimes the universe puts us in positions where we can make a real difference. Jake rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Tell me more about what you have in mind. What exactly are you proposing? Zara activated a holographic display that filled the air above Jake's desk with 3-dimensional images and charts. I want to establish a joint research facility here in the asteroid belt where human and Etherian scientists can work together as equals. We would start by revolutionizing your mining operations, developing new technologies that are specifically designed for human capabilities and needs. The hologram showed detailed plans for a massive space station that would dwarf Jake's current facility. Unlike other alien species that have offered to help humanity, I am not interested in making you dependent on our technology. I want true collaboration, where both species contribute their unique strengths to create something neither could achieve alone. Jake studied the plans, impressed by the thoughtful design. What makes you think this will work? Other species have tried to help humanity before, and most of those partnerships ended badly. Because I have spent 5 years studying your species, Zara replied. Most aliens who interact with humans see only your technological limitations. They fail to recognize your greatest strength, your capacity for individual moral choice. Humans can make decisions based on compassion and justice, even when those decisions are difficult or dangerous. She gestured to the holographic display, and the images changed to show various human achievements throughout history. Your species has produced individuals who changed the course of civilization through personal courage and sacrifice. That ability to act on moral principles regardless of personal cost is extremely rare in the galaxy. Jake felt a surge of pride at her words, but also a nagging doubt. What if you're wrong about us? What if humans aren't as special as you think? Then I will have lost a fortune and gained valuable knowledge, Zara said with a smile. But I do not believe I am wrong. You proved that to me 5 years ago when you risked everything to save a stranger. That kind of selfless courage is exactly what the galaxy needs more of. Jake stood up and walked to his personal safe, pulling out the crystalline device Zara had given him years ago. I've been carrying this all this time, but I could never. Get it to work. Zara's eyes widened with delight. You kept it? I was not certain you would. That device contains my personal research logs and some of my most important discoveries. It will only activate when both of us are present, as a symbol of our partnership. She reached over and placed her hand on the crystal alongside Jake's. Immediately, the device began to glow with soft light, and holographic data began flowing through the air around them. Jake watched in amazement as complex equations and technological specifications filled his office. This is incredible, he whispered. But I need to ask you something important. What assurances do I have that humanity will remain independent? I don't want us to become just another client species in your business empire. Zara's expression grew serious. That is an excellent question, and I'm glad you asked it. I will put legal protections in place to ensure that humans maintain full control over any technologies we develop together. My role will be as a partner and investor, not as a ruler or overlord. She deactivated the holographic display and leaned forward. I also want to establish a governing council with equal representation from both species. Any major decisions about the partnership will require agreement from both human and Etherian representatives. I will not make any choices about humanity's future without human consent. Jake felt some of his tension ease. What about other alien species? How will they react to humans suddenly having access to advanced technology? Some will be pleased to see humanity joining the galactic community as equals, Zara said. Others will be concerned about the shift in power balance. That is why I am offering more than just technology. My company has strong relationships with dozens of species and governments. I can provide political protection and trade agreements that will help humanity navigate galactic politics. She pulled out another datapad and handed it to Jake. This contains letters of introduction from some of the most powerful leaders in the galaxy. They are willing to welcome humanity as a respected member of the galactic community based on my personal recommendation. Jake read through the documents, recognizing some of the names from news reports about interstellar politics. This is amazing, but I still have one major concern. What happens if this partnership fails? What if humans and Etherians can't work together effectively? Then we will have learned something valuable about the challenges of interspecies cooperation. Zara replied, but I do not believe we will fail. I have watched human teams work together under pressure, and I have seen how your species responds to challenges. You adapt, you innovate, and you find ways to succeed even when the odds are against you. Jake set down the datapad and looked directly into Zara's violet eyes. I need some conditions if we're going to do this. First, we start small. I want to test this partnership with my mining operation before we expand to anything larger. If it works here, then we can talk about planetary-scale projects. Agreed, Zara said immediately. Second, I want complete transparency. No hidden agendas, no secret technologies, no backdoor deals. If we're going to be partners, we need to trust each other completely. Of course, Zara nodded. I would expect nothing less from you. Third, I want to be involved in every major decision. I won't be a figurehead or a public relations tool. If you want my help, you get my opinions and my input on everything we do. Zara smiled, and Jake could see the same warmth and intelligence that had impressed him 5 years ago. Those are exactly the conditions I hoped you would demand. They prove that you understand the importance of what we are attempting. She stood up and extended her hand to Jake. So, Jake Morrison, will you help me change the galaxy? Jake looked at her outstretched hand, thinking about the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. 5 years ago, he had made a simple, moral choice to help a stranger in need. Now that choice was offering him the chance to help his entire species reach for the stars. He grasped Zara's hand firmly. Let's do it. 6 months after shaking hands with Zara in his small office, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the most advanced mining facility in human space. The transformation had been incredible to witness. What had once been his modest mining station was now a gleaming testament to human-Etherian cooperation, producing energy yields that exceeded anything humanity had ever achieved. The new facility stretched across 3 asteroid platforms, connected by enclosed walkways that provided safe passage between work areas. Etherian technology had made the mining process safer and more efficient, while human ingenuity had found ways to adapt the alien systems to work better in the harsh environment of the asteroid belt. Jake watched through the reinforced windows as human and Etherian workers collaborated on the mining platforms below. The sight still amazed him. Members of 2 different species, separated by thousands of light years of evolution, working side by side as if they had always been partners. The Etherian workers had adapted quickly to human safety protocols, while the human miners had embraced the new technologies with enthusiasm. The latest production reports are beyond our most optimistic projections, Zara said, joining Jake at the viewing window. She had spent most of the past 6 months at the facility, working alongside the human engineers to ensure the integration went smoothly. We are producing 3 times more refined materials than your old operation, with 0 safety incidents. Jake nodded, still somewhat overwhelmed by the speed of the changes. My workers love the new equipment. The automated safety systems mean they can focus on their jobs without constantly worrying about cave-ins or equipment failures. And the Etherian staff have been incredible teachers. News of the partnership had spread quickly through human space and beyond. Other mining companies had sent representatives to tour the facility, and several governments had inquired about licensing the new technologies. But Jake and Zara had been careful about expansion, wanting to prove their concept thoroughly before taking on larger projects. We have received another communication from the Earth Colonial Authority, Zara said, handing Jake a datapad. They are formally requesting a meeting to discuss expanding our partnership to include military applications. Jake read through the message, noting the urgency in the official language. They want defensive technologies. The border tensions with the Corvani Empire have been getting worse. I have been expecting this request, Zara admitted. My intelligence network indicates that several hostile species are becoming concerned about human advancement. They preferred it when your species was isolated and technologically limited. Jake felt a chill at her words. Are we putting humanity in danger by moving too fast? Possibly, Zara said honestly. But the alternative is worse. If humans remain weak and isolated, you will eventually be conquered or enslaved by species like the Corvani. At least this way, your people will have the tools to defend themselves. She activated a holographic display showing star charts and fleet movements throughout local space. I have been using my business relationships to monitor potential threats. 3 different species have increased their military activities near human territory. They are testing your defenses and looking for weaknesses. Jake studied the display, recognizing some of the star systems near Earth's outer colonies. What kind of defensive technologies are you talking about? Energy shields that can protect entire planets, weapon systems that can disable ships without destroying them, and communication networks that cannot be intercepted or jammed, Zara explained. Technologies that will make humanity too difficult and expensive to attack. The idea of giving humans such powerful defensive capabilities was both exciting and terrifying. What about other species that might see us as a threat? That is where my political connections become valuable, Zara said with a smile. I have already begun reaching out to friendly governments and trade organizations. I am positioning humanity as a stabilizing force in the region, not as an aggressive expansion threat. Jake walked over to his desk and picked up a small communication device. I think it's time to contact Earth and arrange that meeting. But I want to make sure we maintain control over how these technologies are used. Agreed, Zara said. I will draft a proposal that ensures human independence while providing the defensive capabilities your species needs. As Jake composed his message to Earth, he reflected on how much his life had changed. 6 months ago, he had been a simple mining station manager with a small crew and modest responsibilities. Now he was helping to shape the future of human civilization, working with one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy to ensure his species' survival and prosperity. There is something else I need to tell you, Zara said quietly. The crystalline device I gave you years ago has been sending a signal to my people since we reactivated it. Yesterday, I received a response from the Etherian High Council. Jake looked up from his communication device, sensing the importance of what she was about to say. They have officially recognized humanity as a species of moral distinction, Zara continued. It is one of the highest honors the Etherian government can bestow. Only 12 species in the entire galaxy have ever received this recognition. Jake felt his heart racing. What does that mean exactly? It means that humanity is now under the formal protection of the Etherian Empire, Zara explained. Any species that attacks humans will be considered to have attacked us as well. It also grants your people special trading privileges and access to our most advanced educational institutions. Jake sat down heavily in his chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she was telling him. All of this because I helped you escape from that prison ship? All of this because you showed that humans possess the rarest quality in the universe, the ability to choose compassion over self-interest, Zara corrected. That single act of kindness has rippled across the galaxy in ways neither of us could have imagined. She moved to the viewing window and looked out at the bustling mining operation. This facility is just the beginning. With Etherian protection and technology, humans can explore new galaxies, establish colonies on distant worlds, and contribute to the advancement of galactic civilization. Jake joined her at the window, watching as a group of human children from the nearby research station played with young Etherians in the facility's recreation area. The sight filled him with hope for the future. What's our next step? We prepare for the meeting with Earth's leaders, Zara said. We show them what human-Etherian cooperation can accomplish, and we help them understand that this partnership represents humanity's best chance for a bright future among the stars. As they stood together watching the next generation of humans and Etherians learning from each other, Jake realized that his journey was far from over. The simple act of freeing a stranger from a prison cell had become the foundation for humanity's greatest adventure. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and now his species would have the chance to explore it all as equals rather than primitives. The girl he had freed had returned as a billionaire. But more importantly, she had returned as a friend who would help humanity reach for the stars.